Charges of treason and conspiracy to murder were once laid against Robert McBride Shadrack Sibiya and private investigator paulo'sulivan. An affidavit was submitted to Bedford Police by Gauteng Hawks boss Major General Prince Mukotedi. Mukotedi alleged they conspired to murder him and Hawks boss Lieutenant General Mthandazo Ndlameza. He further claimed that they planned to use information gathered on Duduzane Zuma when Jacob Zuma was president to mobilize the community to revolt and to pressure the president to quit office. He asserted that their intention was to destabilize the security forces of the country and to oust the president of the country through popular revolt. Hawks boss Lieutenant General Mthandazo Ndlameza submitted a warning statement to police watchdog IPID in 2016. Hours later, Ndlameza's subordinate, Gauteng Hawks boss Prince Mukotedi, laid 9 charges including treason against IPID then head Robert McBride and 3 others. McBride's investigators were probing Ndlameza and acting SEP's head at the time, Lieutenant General Khomotso Phahlane, for charges including perjury, defeating the ends of justice, and corruption. Phahlane was scheduled to submit his own warning statement at the same time as Ndlameza, but cancelled at the last minute. McBride believed the 2 events were connected. It is serious charges that we're investigating against Ndlameza and Phahlane because of the position they hold, but it is nothing as exotic as treason, he said. Mukotedi laid charges of treason, espionage, conspiracy to commit murder, corruption, intimidation and harassment, defeating the ends of justice, tax evasion, and a contravention of the immigration laws. He accused McBride, his predecessor, Shadrack Sibiya, private investigator, paulo'sulivan, and crime intelligence official captain, Candice Coetzee, of trying to oust President Jacob Zuma during his presidency. Both McBride and Sibiya strenuously denied the accusations. Prince is hearing voices, McBride said. Phahlane's case was submitted to the National Prosecuting Authority, McBride said. Sibiya said, "The Prince is confused. He must decide if he wants to be a policeman, a politician, or a pastor. All 3 in one confuse him and cause danger to him because he doesn't know where he belongs." Sibiya explained that a meeting did take place on December 3, 2016, but denied that any conspiracy against Zuma, Mukotedi, or Ndlameza was hatched. On December 2nd, I received an SMS from paulo'sulivan's assistant asking for a meeting on December 3rd at 3 p.m. The SMS was seen by the media. It detailed an address where the meeting would take place, but gave no further context. According to Sibiya, he didn't know it was Rodavin Crasher's former address. I had to use my GPS to get there. When I arrived, we were told the discussion was about Paul's report, joining the dots. He wrote it in conjunction with AfriForum. Paul asked for our input because we were mentioned in his report. That was it. We didn't discuss President Zuma, his son, or Mukotedi. Mukotedi clearly knows what he should say to make the politicians angry. They want to give the Minister of Police, Nathi Nhleko, reason to suspend McBride. 9 charges, including treason and conspiracy to murder, were laid against IPID's Robert McBride, former top hawk Shadrack Sibiya, private investigator paulo'sulivan, and a crime intelligence officer. In an affidavit submitted to Bedford View Police, Gauteng Hawks boss Major General Prince Mukotedi alleged the 4 conspired to murder him and Hawks boss Lieutenant General Mthandazo Ndlameza, use information gathered on Duduzane Zuma, President Jacob Zuma's son, to mobilize the community to revolt and pressure the president to quit office, mobilize for an Arab Spring type revolt in the country, and destabilize the security forces of the country and to oust the president of the country through popular revolt. Mukotedi alleged that the Zimbabwean rendition debacle, for which McBride and former Hawks boss Anwar Dramet were accused, was the genesis of the alleged conspiracy. On McBride's table was a series of investigations, including investigations into Ndlameza and the Crimes Against the State unit that allegedly held an employee of the South African Revenue Service hostage. McBride also wrote the report that cleared Dramet and Sibiya from involvement in the Zimbabwean rendition drama. This came 2 months after McBride was cleared by the court to go back to work. He had been suspended by Police Minister Nathi Nhleko for his involvement in the rendition drama. Hawk's spokesperson, Brigadier Hangwani Mlaudzi, confirmed the case was registered, alleging a series of serious transgressions. The media saw an affidavit drafted by Mukotedi and submitted to the police, but was unable to contact him as his phone appeared to be switched off. Charges against McBride, Sibiya, O'Sullivan, and Captain Candice Coetzee were laid on the strength of an intelligence report dated December 12, 2016, and a knowledge of a secret meeting held on December 3rd, Mukotedi said in his affidavit. Coetzee was suspended for allegedly leaking classified information to O'Sullivan while all these allegations were being thrown around. The 9 charges that were brought by Mukotedi against the accused were treason, espionage, conspiracy to commit murder, corruption, intimidation and harassment, defeating the ends of justice, tax evasion, and a contravention of the immigration laws. The 4 accused allegedly conspired against Mukotedi, Ndlameza, prosecution's boss, Sean Abrams, Acting Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Khomotso Phahlane, and Director General of State Security Agency, Arthur Fraser. O'Sullivan is also said to have collected damaging evidence against Duduzane Zuma, the then president's son. Mukotedi claimed the 4 accused met on December 3rd at the former house of Czech gangster Radovan Krecha, allegedly owned by O'Sullivan at the time. Representatives of AfriForum and the Democratic Alliance are said to have been present, an unexpected political presence. The intelligence report attached to Mukotedi's affidavit spoke of an alleged meeting at the Michelangelo Hotel in Sandton on December 12, 2016. Former DCPI employees, members of the Zimbabwean Intelligence Agency, and Serbian nationals were said to be present. It states that the purpose of the meeting was to discuss the strategy of dealing with Ndlameza, Mukotedi, and the witnesses on the rendition matter, which they perceive General Ndlameza as a dangerous man who may not be left to run the police, and who later brought Major General Mukotedi to do the groundwork, as Major Mukotedi is familiar with the law. The report further indicated that Ndlameza and Mukotedi must be dealt with immediately, and that we should be assassinated because we are seen as the ones who are pursuing the rendition matter, Mukotedi wrote in his affidavit. The strategy was said to implicate them of corruption. An all-out war for power and control of the justice cluster continues even in present day. Robert McBride is labeled the controversial Zimbabwean rendition case, a conspiracy from start to finish. This case was among the first high-profile issues he encountered after being appointed in March 2014. The rendition case is widely perceived as a political maneuver aimed at ousting former Hawks head Anwar Dramet and his former Gauteng commander Shadrack Sibiya. It also led to the wrongful suspension of McBride by former Police Minister Nathi Nhleko just a year after he took office. Both Sibiya and Dramet faced accusations of orchestrating an operation in 2010 that resulted in the illegal repatriation of 5 Zimbabweans who were sought by their country's police for the murder of a senior officer. An investigation by IPID, which took place prior to McBride's arrival, recommended that both men be criminally prosecuted for kidnapping and obstructing justice. Upon joining IPID and succeeding acting director Koki Mbeki, McBride sought updates on all high-profile cases the agency was handling. He received a briefing on the rendition case from Matthew Sisoko, then acting national head of investigations, and Innocent Kuba, the acting provincial head of IPID in Limpopo. McBride expressed concern about how the case arrived at IPID, noting that the docket had been prepared by the Crime Intelligence Unit and then passed to Mbeki, who instructed Kuba to work with Crime Intelligence while bypassing reporting protocols to Sisoko, his superior. I was troubled by crime intelligence involvement in an investigation that, to my understanding, should be separate from the police, McBride remarked. He recalled a conversation with Kuba, who confessed, "Boss, let me be honest with you from the start. I was concerned and scared about this case from the day it was assigned to me." McBride noted that important evidence, including outstanding statements and analysis of cell phone records, had yet to be added to the case file. He mentioned that during the initial weeks, he was unaware of an existing report that clearly identified the suspects and their respective roles. I inquired about the parties involved, the timeline, and the crimes committed at each stage. It indicated a conspiracy from start to finish, McBride concluded. I believe that the integrity of the investigation had been compromised. He requested a review of all the evidence. During this review, an analysis of cell phone records revealed that Sibiya, contrary to the statements of 3 crime intelligence officers, was not present at any of the crime scenes as previously thought. Dramit's connection stemmed from an informant at the border who mentioned that Zimbabwean officials wanted to see him regarding some suspects. He also congratulated the officers for arresting the Zimbabwean individuals and was included in a group who received automated bulk SMS updates on their successes, McBride stated. Once I was informed that Sibiya could not be linked to any of the scenes, it raised doubts about the credibility of the 3 crime intelligence witnesses who placed Sibiya at 3 different locations. This only deepened my suspicions. Following the review, IPID prepared a second report recommending that no charges be pressed against Dramat or Sibiya due to insufficient evidence. McBride informed the commission that the report effectively exonerated them. However, months later, after Ntleko's appointment, he established a reference group whose members sought a briefing from IPID on its high-profile cases. According to McBride, the group requested access to the entire dossier on the Rendition Saga, along with all related exhibits. This request was supported by a letter from Ntleko demanding compliance. McBride provided the file, but just days later, Dramat was suspended. He recalled a statement from the police ministry indicating that Dramat's suspension was a result of recommendations made in an IPID report. McBride noted that this decision seemed to be based on an initial report finalized before his tenure at IPID, which had only been signed off by Kuba. IPID issued a statement clarifying that it had not recommended Dramat's suspension. He added, "Ultimately, he was forced out of the service." Ntleko went even further by suspending McBride in March 2015, alleging that he had modified the initial report to clear Dramat and Sibiya. McBride contested this suspension in court and ultimately won the case. "2024 saw the end of the controversial Zimbabwe rendition saga, which had dragged on for nearly 14 years. The matter was even heard before the Zondo Commission and saw former top police officer, Lieutenant Colonel Leslie Cowboy Maluleka, given an 18-year wholly suspended sentence. Maluleka, convicted on 4 counts of kidnapping, 1 charge of defeating the ends of justice, and 5 counts of contravening the Immigration Act by facilitating the departure of an illegal foreigner in contravention of the Act. Maluleke, who was in 2010 attached to the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation when the Zimbabwean nationals were forcefully taken back to that country, was the only one who, at the end, faced the brunt for the Zimbabwe rendition saga. Charges were earlier dropped against former Hawks head Anwar Dramat and Gauteng Hawks head Shadrack Sibiya. The judge said, looking at the evidence, it appears that there was also some involvement on the part of Home Affairs at the time. The marathon trial, which took years to get off the ground, had a long history. The charges followed the rendition of several Zimbabweans in 2010 and 2011 to their place of birth. They were wanted for the alleged murder of a top cop in Zimbabwe, a Chief Superintendent Chati Kobo, who was killed in September 2010. It was claimed that the victims in the kidnapping charges, which Maluleka faced, fled to South Africa and sought refuge in Deep Sloot. The Zimbabwean police enlisted the help of the Hawks and the courts heard that a delegation of officers from Zimbabwe met Maluleke at the Hawks offices in Silverton, Pretoria, on November 4th, 2010, for the suspects to be returned to that country, bypassing the normal extradition route. There was an amnesty for undocumented Zimbabweans at the time, which allowed Zimbabweans to apply for legal documents while in South Africa without being deported. It is claimed that Maluleke illegally arranged with the Zimbabwean police to trace, arrest, and deport the nationals implicated, who were here illegally. It was found that Maluleke himself was part of the delegation which allegedly kidnapped some of the suspects and drove across the Beitbridge border post, where they were handed over to the Zimbabwean police. The marathon trial, which started in 2018 but which was delayed on several occasions, saw 41 witnesses who gave evidence for the state. Prosecutor Advocate George Baloyi called on the court to sentence Maluleke to direct imprisonment, as he said Maluleke had overstepped the boundaries by taking matters in his own hands by forcefully removing the Zimbabwean nationals from here and taking them back to their country. He said it appeared that Maluleke was motivated by enthusiasm and thus did not follow the law or adhere to the constitution.